Hello and welcome to the Gooners Podcast.
Andy, you've never looked so good.
Mike, I know, right? I was getting sick of Ian telling me how red my face was.
Ian.
I do that now because I know that you're just going to continue to call him Ian through the whole show.
I am. Well, Ian is a nice name, but there's also another nice name and a person that we have joining with us today. His name is Ryan Rocastle, and we're very excited to have him. So thank you for joining us, Ryan.
Nah, not a problem.
For most people, it is a problem. So we'll check in with you at the end of the podcast and see if you still feel the same way. But it's just nice to have another good guest on. I mean, we've really been talking to some very interesting and wonderful people lately, and it's really just to help us forget the fact that Arsenal is also an actual football club that plays games on Sundays. We prefer to leave that to Ian and to talk about, and we get to have the conversations that don't focus so much on it, although we will get to that. But if you've watched the podcast before, and you know who my absolute favorite Arsenal player is, and it's nothing against these guys, but it's not Thierry, it's not Dennis Bergkamp, it's not Patrick Vieira, and despite what most people think, it's also not Yossi Benayoun. I know that, Andy, that's where you were probably going.
The Jewish connection for sure.
Yeah, but I've been asked the question 1,000 times, and 1,000 times the answer is David Rocastle. And so, as much as we know that listeners love David and that we want to hear about your dad, and we will, and we'll hear from people about your dad as well. I don't want to make it a David Rocastle interview with Ryan Rocastle. We want to do a Ryan Rocastle interview with Ryan Rocastle. So, so I'm going to leave the speaking about your dad to some other people who would certainly know more about that than I would. So, in fact, to start that, I do want to play some words from somebody who I know you are very close with and was very close with your dad as well. So take a second to listen to Alan Smith talk about Rocky and beyond.
Yeah, he was a special person. I mean, that dinner that we went to at the end of season, it was our chance, mine and Penny's chance, to meet all the lads and their wives, and we were sat at the table at the Hilton on Park Lane in London, and Rocky came across, and as you say, he was only a young lad, and he introduced himself and said, if there's anything you need, anything you want to know, don't hesitate to ask. And we were just so impressed by the boy. I mean, he was mature beyond his years, so polite, so well spoken, and we quickly became friends, really good friends. And Janet, his girlfriend, as a foursome, we'd go out, he was a special mate, and of course a special talent on the pitch. I mean, what a player! I say in the book, he had the heart of a lion and the tackle of a rhino and the skill of a Brazilian. The crowd loved him, and why wouldn't they? Because he did have everything.
So Ryan, you hear these amazing accolades about your father, but you're born in 91, 92. Mm-hmm. And so at what point do you remember being born into this family where your dad is just this living legend? I can't remember anything that I did like 3 weeks ago, but at what point did it really hit home for you, where you were you and your sisters were like, this isn't a normal family that I'm in, right?
Good question. It's hard to say because when you live through it, you don't realize. To be honest with you, you don't. It's not something you think about. I mean, because I was so young as well, I can't really remember him playing in England. I do. Luckily, because just before he died, he went out to play in Malaysia, and we joined him out there for the second part of it, and that's really the times that I can remember actually watching him in a stadium. But then I do kind of have some memories of when we just, for example, being in out on the streets and people. But back then there was no camera phone, so it was people just asking for autographs or You know, I remember like one time we were driving out of, might have been Chelsea, and you know, just people mobbing the car. So obviously, I had an idea that things were a little different, and you know, sometimes at you know, sports day or something at school, you know, people taking pictures with dad and just thinking, you know. But you don't. You just, me and my sisters have talked about it before. You just kind of get on with it, and it's not really something that I figured out until later on in my life, how you know, how much he was loved by the fans, and you know what people thought of him.
Yeah, I mean, as a guy whose father was a podiatrist in Northern Virginia, I got the same thing. I mean, like, I didn't realize how, you know, there people would walk up with their feet and ask them to sign it. I mean, it's nuts. So I can completely relate.
So Ryan, was there ever any pressure on you to like be this amazing sportsman or athletic, or like have a love of football? Because, you know, I think a lot of like, you know, when your father is in the position he's in and you're old enough to comprehend it, did you like dive head first into football? Was it a passion of yours, or was it just kind of like, oh, cool, we're going to another football match?
Nah, yeah, it's more the latter, you know. It's it was just I like playing football, but I remember, you know, when I was really young, I didn't watch it that much. You know, even when, you know, Dad was playing, you know, I'd just be, you know, if he did something good or scored, yeah, I'd be excited. But when you're that young, you don't really, you kind of, I feel like, well, anyway, for me personally, I just want it. I like playing and having a kick about with him and stuff. But yeah, there was never any, you know, pressure on me as such, you know, especially when we went out to Malaysia. It was hard to play football back then in the way that it was when we were in England, because we were living in an apartment and there wasn't too much space. You know, the school we had, it was massively into basketball. So yeah, but no, yeah, I never felt any kind of pressure like that. No.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll talk about kind of what, not the pressure part and not the footballer part, but the Gooner part of it in just a minute, because I think you've made it pretty clear what influenced that, and we'll get there. But you know, I as someone who kind of shares one thing with you, and again, this is not about me, but you know, I've lost my father to cancer as well, leukemia, in fact, and you know, that's where, you know, our strong feelings come about Leukemia Lymphoma Society. We do fundraising for them and all that. But, you know, I was 34, 35 when he got sick. You were 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
And, you know, I promise this is kind of the last of these, you know, on a very special episode of the Gooners Pod kind of questions. But, you know, you know, most of you know, your teammates talk about kind of how they knew he was sick, then they thought he might be getting better, and then they heard the crushing news. And so it sounds like everything was held pretty close to the vest within the family, as it should be. But I mean, do you have any lasting positive memories? It's hard to imagine there being positives coming out of that, but my experience was there were little super positive and inspirational things sprinkled in with all the negative stuff that was going on. And, you know, were you old enough to kind of take some of those things and bring them into your personality and your life going forward?
Are you talking about the final, his final day?
Yeah, I mean, just the experience of knowing that he was sick and kind of seeing how he dealt with it and how the family dealt with it. I mean, nothing too personal.
Yeah.
You obviously declined to answer. I just, you know, sometimes there are little positive things that you can take out of it, mostly inspirational. And I'm just wondering whether that was the same for you.
Well, to be honest, I was, because I was so young, I think my mum, you know, purposely tried to keep us out of that kind of stuff. You know, obviously we knew something was not right because our dad was staying in hospital, and we visited him after school. But to be completely honest, that I myself didn't know how sick he was until a couple of days before before my mum had to tell me and my sisters, you know, like what was going on. So it was, it's not really, it didn't kind of, I think when you're older, in a way, it's actually quite, I've had other friends who have lost their parents. And I think actually it's harder for them because they understand what's going on. Whereas I didn't, I didn't know until the very final moment, really.
Yeah, there are pros and cons, I guess, to how involved you are. But as a 9-year-old, that call is your mom's call, and clearly she would know what's best for you. And let's, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It means a lot to me to kind of hear your point of view on that. But let's not dwell. Speaking as the perspective of someone who was 35, here's the perspective of someone who was 55, but he's a very young, very energetic, fun 55-year-old named Perry Groves. And he had some nice things to say on our podcast about your dad earlier this year when he was on with us. So I just wanted to share those with you.
Sure.
So, and he was fantastically good looking. He was fantastic personality, brilliant player, and he's one of those people in life when you meet him and as a human being you think, oh come on, there must be something wrong with you. You can't be all perfect. Come on, you've got to have a flaw. And the only flaw that he had for his size, he had massive feet. I think he was about a size 9.5 boot, which was the same as me, 9.5, 10. But just a fantastic person, fantastic human being. I don't get very emotional. I've only probably cried twice in my life when the birth of my 2 children, and I can remember listening to radio on the Saturday when the news came, Rocky had passed away, and that was one of the few times that, especially as an adult, that I sobbed my heart out.
Yeah, we have been fortunate over the last couple of years to speak to a lot of your dad's teammates. I mean, Lee Dixon, Perry, Alan Smith, Michael Thomas, and to a T, every single one of them, we've spent just a moment talking about the impact on them personally. Even some people who didn't really have too much interaction with him, like Stuart Robson, Adrian Clark. It's just, it's heartwarming to know that not a single person had anything close to a negative thing to say about them, about him, and quite the opposite, actually. So getting back to kind of your involvement with Arsenal as a child, as an adult, you've documented pretty well that, as you said, football really wasn't a priority for you, either as a fan or as a player, but something changed in 2001. The FA Cup final against Liverpool, just 6 weeks after your dad passed. And, Arsenal really knew how to capture you for life, didn't they? Tell us about that day.
Yeah. To be honest, it really did completely change everything, because obviously I knew my dad. I knew he played for Arsenal, and that was where he had his success, and that was always the team he looked out for. But there was never, I wore the kits of the teams that he played for. That's just kind of how it was when I was that age. And I think maybe if he had stayed around for a bit longer, he would have pushed me towards Arsenal because of how he felt about the club. He loved the club so much. But yeah, so when I went to be the mascot is actually when I personally started to really develop feelings for the club, because of that day, it was pretty crazy. It was going on the pitch at such a young age, and I recognized some of the players because they were my dad's ex-teammates. And then we lost, unfortunately.
It's the last time we lost in an FA Cup final.
Yeah.
In a way, we have you to thank, because that was the day they did. They didn't get it done that day, but they decided that for you they were gonna.
Mike, have I ever told you about my 2001 FA Cup story?
No.
So over here, Ryan, obviously everyone knows like prom is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I was a senior in high school, and the match obviously happens a lot earlier in the day, and the girl that I was dating, I'm still friends with to this day, and she actually brought this story up recently to my wife. But the prom's a huge deal, and with Arsenal losing, I didn't smile in one photo. I didn't want to be at the dance. I just ruined my entire day, and she's not forgiving me since then.
Yeah.
It was just.
Did you at least show her Did you show her a picture of Michael Owen at least? I mean that.
Oh, it's what gave me a hatred for Michael Owen, and I remember people just couldn't comprehend why I was so upset, and I just said to someone, I said, imagine this being like the Super Bowl with your team losing. Would you enjoy this like moment and dance? And all the guys were like, no, I get it now, But yeah, that's my 2001 FA Cup story.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that was tough. But the year later, I went to the one against Chelsea, and I think that made up for it, because by that time.
And by that point, you were full-fledged.
That time,
wearing the shirt with the stars. I mean. What transformed in that year? I mean, how sharp of a?
Oh, so much, honestly. I would get how you just described. I would get like that over, because back then, like losing, it was that happened 3 or 4 times a season at the most. So if it happened, that was the day gone. I would be completely miserable. I looked out. I watched every game I could, got the shirts, got that it was there were the days of wearing the other shirts were gone after that. It was.
I will say, speaking of the day gone, I think the one good thing for family members of Gooners who are not necessarily hardcore Gooners themselves over here in the States is that right now most of our games are Sunday afternoon rather than Saturday morning, and so it's not as much of the weekend that's ruined. It's just the final part of it. Whereas we'd play at 7:45, 8 a.m. on a Saturday, the entire thing was just out the window. But I get that. Matthew D'Souza talks about a story that Perry told, and he told us on our podcast, and it was the second clip I was going to run if I had to choose one of the two. Where he's on the phone talking to your dad, saying, "Oh, we play the same position, but I'm going to be this. I'm going to get the start tomorrow," and he's just standing behind him, laughing. I'm sure he's told you that story. You've heard it before.
He has actually, yeah.
So, and there's another picture of you from that day in '91 with Lee Dixon kind of wrapping his hands around your face as you're getting taken off the pitch beforehand. It sounds like a wonderful day despite the loss. So. And it started a love affair with the club that was in your own right, not out of necessity or birthright, but because you wanted to.
But yeah, basically that. Just obviously now it would be very. I couldn't imagine like supporting another team. It would be very strange. But I think that day gave me the real desire for it.
If we ever get into a Club World Cup final against the team from Malaysia, would you be wearing a half and half scarf, or are you just still going to do
that? No, but yeah, I
So you don't have to answer that. So as an adult, the pull of football is still strong on you from professional standpoint as well as a personal standpoint. You pursued a journalism degree, which again another commonality. My daughter's pursuing that now, and it's a great noble profession, and you studied it. You've entered the world of freelance writing for Arsenal blogs like Dave Seeger's Gunnertown, and So I mean, how did you? I mean, did you get close to anybody at the club through that process, and after that, tell us what it kind of was like then crossing town to QPR and working with them for a little while.
Well, Arsenal was a bit different because I was doing it on a freelance basis. So I occasionally went to the training ground, occasionally went to Highbury House, and occasionally a lot of the stuff from home. And it was a great experience. I got such an insight to the journalism world. I got to do some really great interviews. I think as well with a lot of my dad's teammates. They were the kind of go-to people. I knew that sometimes they will say no to the club. To me they would be okay with it if I asked them. And it was great. But the QPR one was full time, and I did kind of feel that I liked supporting. I love supporting Arsenal, and when you're working for the club, it can kind of get a little bit. You can get it can take it away from being a fan, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
So when I went to QPR, it was like I could go back to completely just supporting the club. But I was very grateful for the opportunities that I got there. And QPR was I loved it. I really did. It was a great time there.
Seems like a neat club. I mean, we've always loved going to Loftus Road to watch games. I mean, I'm a real kind of lover of traditional stadium. Old stadiums and that. We don't have that anymore. That's a good place to go.
It still is. It's especially when it's rocking at Loftus Road. Like, it's some atmosphere. The disappointing thing was that the team wasn't that great at QPR. So, but again, it kind of it got me. It showed me the different sides of a real top end club like Arsenal, and then QPR, who were definitely not bottom end, but like they had come off the back of kind of wasting a lot of money, and they're down in the Championship. But yeah, the team, the people who work at QPR in their media department are great, and I really enjoyed it. But my feeling was that journalism, that whole the way the industry was going, and it wasn't for me.
Right.
The whole, when I studied it at university, it was a load of it was about like writing, big long feature pieces, and taking your time with things, doing interviews like properly, and and then when I felt like in the journalism world is a lot of it is just get it out as quick as you can. Take it from, get your sort of sources from other websites and things like that. And it's just the whole fast-paced nature of it just didn't really suit me, to be totally honest, even though I still enjoy writing and I still enjoy elements of it. But yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's a heck of an industry. I mean, we've certainly we know all sorts that are in journalism. Some real amazing folks who just really write good, do good work, do things the right way, and then there's the other side of it.
Tom. Tom Canton. So, right, who like, you obviously have met a lot of Arsenal legends in your time, and so, like, first, like, who was your favorite interview outside of Gunnosaurus? Like, who really, like, did you just enjoy talking to? And then did you ever get starstruck? Like, you're also a fan, right? So, like, Mike and I have been in a very unique scenario where we've had drinks with Ray Parler, and we've got to talk to Lee Dixon, and, like, we've been lucky enough to talk to some legends. I just feel like if I were to have Thierry Henry on this, I'd just be weeping the whole time. So, like, what was kind of your perspective of having to be in that scenario?
Next week on the Gooners Pod, by the way, Thierry Henry.
Yeah, well, Thierry was the interesting one because he has the same agent as who my dad had. Okay. So I knew not knew him well, but I'd come across other times where we'd be at the same thing. But he was my favorite interview because he was like my hero, I think, in terms of the game, and when I met him The very first time was back in 2001. Yeah, and I remember him very well. I remember him because I thought his name was Henry. And I just thought, what a weird. I remember I used to think, what a weird surname when I was a kid. I was like, he's got a first name as a surname.
You had a friend named Henry, right? That you had.
Yeah, and I had a friend.
You picked him out for your favorite player in the program.
100, yeah. And I saw him, and I was just like, oh, okay. And then I felt like, when we did our interview, it was that when he was kind of, well, I don't know if he was working, but he was definitely on the training ground with, and I felt like he really opened up to me, in terms of, like he really gave. I don't know if it was because he knew, we both know his agent and stuff, but yeah, that one was probably my favorite.
So skipping forward a little bit, we know that there are still some of your dad's teammates who you remain close with to these to this day, and I think that's wonderful. And I just want to see, are there any specifically that you see more often that you stay in touch with and keep?
Well, I mean, in terms of, I think my sister is very close with Whitey. Well, obviously I am too, but they're on, like they speak every day. I think he called her yesterday or the day before to ask, like, if you can still eat food after it's been in the fridge for 2 days, something like that. And he's the sort of person he won't actually text you saying hi. He'll just text you going like what you've been doing, or you're watching the game, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then, but I'd say that because of the profession I was in, I think Alan Smith, he's been so fantastic to all of us. He's such a good friend. Is that in there?
I was really, really taking a risk there, because if you had just completely left Alan out, I was going to look pretty dumb here.
I was panicking there. I was
always getting a mention.
I'm like, please, Ryan, we did not rehearse this. No one knows. Please say Alan Smith.
No.
Hello, are you okay, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. You're okay?
Yeah. What you been rambling on about? What are we talking about here then?
Well, I just got to you. You came too early. I was about to sing your praises.
Oh yeah, you should have let me carry on there, Mike. You should have let me carry on.
Yeah, I can put him back in the waiting room if you'd like. I would feel weird doing that, but I reached out to Alan, who has been an incredible friend of the podcast in the last few years, and told him we were having you on. And I've read of the close relationship that you guys have.
Yeah.
To this day, godfather of one of your sisters, and I just thought it would be wonderful, and Alan was willing to come on just to say hi. I mean,
it's good to see you.
And you, mate, and you. Yeah.
One of the things I came across
my mom
recently was this picture, and I hope you don't mind me sharing it. How recent was this picture? I mean, Alan, you look the same all the time, but
there's a couple of things in there, Ryan.
I was going to say, looking at some of those faces, that's definitely not too recent.
I don't know. None of you age, so I wouldn't really know.
Maybe 8 years ago.
The two lads on the end are no longer in the circle of trust. They're good lads. But they're no longer my daughter's boyfriends. No.
Oh, so I'm like, I didn't think you had those age sons. I'm like, that's all right. Well, I can crop this then. That was smart, keeping them on the outside, because you could crop it if you had known.
I can't believe you didn't crop them out, Mike.
I didn't. I was 4:00 in the morning last night while I was doing my my epic show prep, and
So my sister, she would have been able to. She takes one. Well, I say one. She takes about 20 every year that that we do our little Christmas meetup, and she would have given you the most recent one.
Yeah, we should. We're not going to do it well. I don't know. We were trying to get a date in the diary, weren't we?
We were on the WhatsApp chat. We have a Smith Rocastle WhatsApp chat, and
that's great.
God, the Andy Rhodes, Owen Young, Mike WhatsApp chat seems pretty lame now, I gotta say.
Yeah.
I think it always did, by the way.
So what? Like off topic a little bit, but what is the rules over there for Christmas? My sister was saying that they're gonna release everyone from quarantine for a couple weeks. Is that still the case, or?
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's difficult to keep up with the rules, I've got to say. But today is the first day out of lockdown. There's obviously different tiers in different areas of the country. We're tier 2, aren't we, Ryan? I think you're the same.
Well, I'm tier 2, yeah. So yeah. I think is it like for 5 days that all of it just goes? I'm not sure this is official advice or anything.
There's been a lot of kind of criticism of it, suggesting there's going to be infection rates are going to go through the roof again. But I think people will, in the main, be sensible. For about 5 days, they're going to relax it and then go back to what we are now, I suppose, with these tiers, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, it should be interesting. Owen. I mean, he has family. He has friends. All he cares about is getting to the pub. Yeah,
typical Irishman.
He would rather have everybody. And Owen hosts our preview and review shows on the pod, so we give him a hard time because he can't verbalize his comebacks to us right now. But he would prefer everyone be locked down except for him and the pubs, just him and the pubs. So I do want to just quickly, and I have to get this off my chest. The picture that I showed of Christmas, which I won't show again because there are men on there that don't belong on there, apparently. But again, I lost my dad 11 years ago to leukemia, and it can get really, really hard to keep close to people who are primarily close to you through your loved one. And I have a stepmother, a step family. They've got kids. He had friends, and it's just you try, and sometimes it's just really not. Life gets in the way, and it just really puts a smile on my face and kind of a tear in my eye to see the continued closeness that was born from Alan, you and Penny, and David and Janet, just kind of forming that friendship. And 20 years later, 30 years later, it's still there. And I just wanted to say it warms the cockles of my heart. I guess I could do the bell for that.
One of the loveliest families you could ever wish to meet. So it's not been a bind. Jana is an amazing person, and she's brought up 3 wonderful children, adults now. And for that, she should be very proud because they've turned into wonderful, wonderful people.
Well, it's amazing. I'm a little emotional. Sorry, Andy, you got something to...
No, I was going to say next time just cut and paste our faces on those ex-boyfriends, and that should be...
that would be a little creepy. I think Alan might stop responding to my message.
Yeah. We've got another one on the firm, a fiance actually.
Yeah.
So we don't upset him by putting former boyfriends on there.
It's not a position you take for granted, I suppose. So another amazing memory for me was the 30th of March 2013. It was about 23 years since I had last been in London, and I was finally able to take my wife, my then 11 and 9-year-old kids to London and fulfill a dream of ours. And as it happened, we had no plan of this. It was the 12th anniversary game where Rocky was honored in a way that I'll never forget. I mean, just his picture up on the screen for the entire beginning of the game, crowd chanting his name over and over again for 10 minutes, really only stopped because Gervinho scored, of all people, and the first goal of a 4-1 win. But on that screen was a saying that a lot of people attribute to your dad, but I think it was kind of passed down from Bertie Mee to Pat Rice to your father, who's best known for it, I would say. And remember who you are, what you are, and most importantly, who you represent. At what point, Ryan, and I'll ask you too, Alan, at what point has this message seemingly got lost a little bit with today? This is where we move to today's club, because I know you're a supporter, Alan. I know you have strong opinions as both a former player and that dreaded pundit word that you don't like to use. But I mean, does this message need to be on the walk out of the dressing room onto the pitch at the very, very least? Because it doesn't seem like it's really carried forward.
You first, Ryan.
I said to my sister when we went, I said that I felt like just next to the Emirates, there's a really little museum. I don't know if you've ever been to it.
Oh yeah,
it's really neatly done. And I said, do you not think like it would be cool if when every player that signs, just goes through, it takes like 10 minutes to go through just to learn a bit more about
God, if they're not doing that, that's an outstanding idea. I mean,
just to learn like a little bit of the not it's the same like about my dad's there, but even before that, and just so you can, because I feel like the players now, not all of them realize about the history of the club. They just kind of know about the modern stuff. So yeah, I feel like it's got a bit lost, but I think that's just the modern day game, isn't it? Much?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, but Alan.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say, some people take an interest in history and the history of what they're doing, where they are, what job they've got. Others don't. That doesn't, those that don't doesn't mean they don't care, that they're bad footballers. But I always remember Thierry Henry. He knew all about the history of the club.
Yeah, he did.
When he came, he took the time and trouble to find out about it. And as we know, he had a really strong connection with the club, which only got stronger as the years passed. Not everybody's like that, If we were winning every week, nobody would be questioning players' lack of knowledge,
Right.
But I always remember Rocky saying that, and he'd say it in jest quite often, if somebody transgressed and got the wrong side of George Graham or something, and he'd kind of just say it to just make us all laugh. But I think you're right, Mike. I think it was in the Bertie Mee years. I think it was probably Bertie Mee because he was such a disciplinarian. David O'Leary, I think he confirmed that once, that it was him that started it. And as you say, Pat Rice, and of course George Graham carried that on and always made us aware of it. And it's a saying worth remembering. If you play for Arsenal, if you support them, it does kind of stand for what the club's about.
Alan, I have a question kind of on this topic. So we've currently seen since Aubameyang signed his new contract, like he hasn't been the player himself, right? And I think part of why he re-signed for Arsenal was that I want to be remembered at a club like Brighty, right? Where you, in yourself, these legends of the club. So do you see his current form? I mean, he just doesn't look the same player. He just looks unenthusiastic. I don't know if he's just in that rut as a striker. Is he just struggling?
Sorry, that's my 17-year-old footballer.
What is your take as an ex-professional seeing him? Do you think it's struggling with living up to the contract? Is he just in the rut? Like, what do you think think's happening right now?
Yeah, I think it's too easy to make the connection between the contract and his lack of form. Some suggesting that, well, he's earning the big bucks now. He's relaxing. He's resting on his laurels. I don't know him, but I don't see him as that kind of personality. I do think he's a good professional. He's somebody that wants to score goals. He wants to do well, and when you get to his age as well, you can almost see the finishing line in sight, and you should be doubly keen to do well. I know he's still got a few years, obviously, and he's still very fit. But I think he's just kind of a symptom of the way Arsenal are, not creating chances, not playing well going forward, and there's a lack of confidence amongst his teammates, and his strike partners. Lacazette's obviously struggling. Willian's not been quite the same player we've seen at Chelsea. So
it's just a combination. I mean, there's so many different things that are all coming together in the worst possible way right now, which is why, I laugh at people. I mean, I don't laugh because it's not funny, but when people start talking about relegation or start talking to us about being 14th months from now, I mean, it's got to get better, right? I mean, everything. So
every year, my dad will make a bet with me who's going to finish higher in the table, right? West Ham or Arsenal. And then my brother-in-law does the same. And I've said to them, hey, I need you two to send me the league table, because they always send me a picture when West Ham's above us. And I said, okay, that's when the curse for West Ham starts. I'm like, can someone send that, please? Because this is usually when we turn things around. But genuinely,
the bet is actually, it's called estate planning. That's how they get the money from him to you without tax.
Right.
They do a bet like that.
So you talk about the lack of creativity, and I'll ask both Ryan and Alan this, because we all love football and the club, but we talk about creativity, but we've got that one player who can bring that to the club. What are your guys' opinions on the dreaded Ozil situation and conversation? I mean, is he the missing link at this point? Ryan, I'll go to you first. I mean, what do you think about this whole scenario?
What I think is, I don't think he should have been excluded from the squad in the way he was, but I personally don't. I remember there were games last year. He played, and we had similar. He played in the game against Olympiacos. He played all 120 minutes when we lost. To that. I think we hardly created anything. I don't know if you guys remember. There was a game against Burnley last January at Turf Moor, and we barely created anything that day.
Some dreadful football.
Yes, he could perhaps, and that's why I wouldn't have completely excluded him, because I think he can contribute, but I wouldn't say we'd be up in second or third if we had Ozil playing. Not this.
Maybe 12th at this point.
Yeah, that's how
kill me now.
I think we'd be slightly better, but not. We wouldn't be. It's not one player for me, and he's not the Mesut Ozil of 2016. Or if he was, then he wouldn't be in the. We'd find a way to make that work, I think.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Roy. He's not the player that he was 4 years ago, and we don't see things that happen behind the scenes. And for Arteta to do what he's done, it is a drastic step, and I think there's obviously things that he was very concerned about. Perhaps he just let him down once too often. There were many occasions where I think he was in the running to play at the weekend, and then for whatever reason he couldn't make it. He was ill, he was injured, and managers get a smell for this kind of thing. If he didn't think that Ozil's heart was in it, well, you can't have somebody like that in a team where you're trying to bust a gut to improve yourself. So I think you've got to respect the manager's decision on that.
Do you think, Alan, it is the manager's decision in this case? I mean, I know that the line has been, it's for footballing reasons, and Arteta's owned it. But I mean, I think it'd be safe to ask you. Is that really what you think what's happened? I mean, because there are multiple other things, including contractual number of appearances and stuff that could be in play here. Just wondering whether you believe that is the true and only reason. I mean, it's certainly part of it, but
no, I think it's a football decision. I genuinely believe that. Arteta isn't going to be, the way things are at Arsenal, he's not going to be overruled on many things. I mean, that's why they moved him from coach to manager. He does wield more power now. And, whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But I think they would have left it in Arteta's hands, and he made that decision based on football reasons. Because if people start saying, well, you can't pick him because there's financial this, that, and the other, most managers aren't going to have that. I don't think Arteta would have that. So I don't think there's anything else behind it.
Okay, fair enough. So before we get to user questions, and if anyone in the chat has a question they want to ask either Ryan or Alan, or Ryan and Alan, please submit it now. But talking about kind of the players and Arteta and all this, Ryan, I was watching a podcast that you did with Akil and Giles from the Gooner Ramble a few years ago. It looked like you guys were in the Tollington, if I recognize my pub tables correctly. I'm an expert in pub tables. But it was right after a loss at White Hart Lane. We were headed towards the run-in for that famous FA Cup final against Chelsea, the first one.
Yeah.
And it was a few weeks after that Crystal Palace debacle that I was unfortunate enough to be at, where the away supporters pretty much turned on the club.
Yeah.
The conversation you're having is about players dropping their heads, not seeming to want it enough. The coach, the manager, Arsene Wenger, playing his preferred players rather than the people that seem to have been showing the most effort. And I was just sitting there like, have we just really been in the same exact situation for this long? Because that's just been the narrative of podcasts for the last couple of weeks and of journalists for the last couple of weeks, is that's still going on here. So, thoughts on Arteta from you? Is this a players manager thing? Is it just a chemistry that needs to work itself out? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on Arteta in general, or more on
he seems to be dealing with a lot of the same things that someone who I think we can agree was starting to be past his sell-on date, and Arsene Wenger at the time was dealing with. Except Arteta's supposed to be, I'm 100% behind him. I wanted to turn it around, but I'm just curious of your thoughts on why we're still dealing with the same kind of player lackadaisicalness and preferential treatment, it would seem.
Well, to be honest, I'd back Arteta over, I think, pretty much all of these players. We've seen that. We don't know how good Arteta is going to be, right? From his first year, I remember his first press conference, and I remember the excitement I had, and I think this year's been tricky, but I still back him to come good. But I know that these players, most of them, we know that they're not going to come good over a consistent period, and that's where I sympathise with Arteta. Yes, they have some decent periods, but they can't consistently do it. And I don't think that's because Mikel can't get the best out of them. Because then we said that about Arsene, we said that about Unai. When Unai went, we thought, oh yeah, now Freddie's in. We'll watch them play. And then we drew 2-2 with Norwich and lost 2-1 to Brighton.
Oh God, that game.
For me, it's not. For me, the players that we have over the a course of a season, these players will show that then whoever's managing them, I don't think. My personal opinion is whoever manages these players wouldn't get them higher than 5th.
Yeah,
I really do. And I know we're down in 14th at the minute, so things look a lot worse. But I expect over the season we'll come we'll finish somewhere between 6th and 8th, and people might see that as a disappointment, not based on the squad we have now. That's what I think. I think people think because of the club, the name, some of the transfers, maybe the wages people are on, the fan base we have is huge. But how come is it whenever we play someone like Wolves or Leicester, you look at it and there's like always 5-6 players, and you think they'd start for us. They get into our side, and these are the teams that are below the top 6. So
yeah, they used to talk about the combined 11s, and we do not want to see combined 11.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, I'm fully behind Arteta. I think he needs time to. I've seen that, enough from him that he's got it to at least to bring us to the next level. It's weird because at the minute because of how we're playing. But I don't believe that Arteta wants us to play like this long term. I think he wants to in a way, I actually quite admire, what he's trying to do, because he's trying to build fundamentals. It could be quite easy for him, he's come from Guardiola. It could be quite easy for him to just play attacking football, and we might even have had a few more points if he did that. But he's got a plan where he always talks about fundamentals being put in place, and he wants to put those fundamentals in place, and then hopefully we get some players that suit him, what he wants a bit more. That's how I see it, anyway.
I think it's
I love the combined squad comment, though, because I was thinking about this the other day. Like, do we have more than 2 or 3 players that would challenge to get into the City's Liverpool squad? I don't think so. And if they were, and if it was, it's more than likely right now Leno, Gabriel, maybe Tierney, and Aubameyang, who off form is still able to probably compete, right? So we're just so short. We're so short. And I agree with Ryan. You need to give Arteta enough time to bring in his vision and his players. And the players that he has brought in have easily been our best players thus far. So
for the most part, yeah.
For the most part. So we just need time. And I think as Arsenal supporters, we get so excited and we get so ahead of ourselves where we think, okay, Arteta had a great season. We won the FA Cup. We're going to go in and compete. Well, no, we're still struggling. Like as Ryan said, there are certain clubs we play against where we're on the back foot from the word go. And we shouldn't be that way. That's not like when Alan was with the club, when Thierry Henry was with the club, we walked into matches where we were already 1 point, 3 points ahead because of who we were and who we had on the pitch. There was already a fear. They don't have that right now.
Mm-hmm. And what you said is that, if you actually listen to his interviews, after we beat Liverpool, 2-1 in July, I think it was, and he said, they asked him, can you be at this level? And he said, it's not magic. It's not a magic dust. These teams get better because they invest well, and he's kind of, I feel like he's not said it as much, but if you kind of listen carefully to what he's saying in the interviews, he's basically saying, I can take these players to a certain level, but it's not going to be the level that people at Arsenal expect.
Well, let's hope he can keep things together long enough to get that support, because unfortunately and wrongly, in my mind, the public sentiment is starting to shift in some capacity. Two-pronged question for you, Alan, from Matt D'Souza. Can you reassure us all that top? I'm just going to say THFC because I don't even want to use the word title and that in the same sentence. That lot are not going to win the title this season. And secondly, when you were playing, did you ever go into a North London derby, as we are this weekend, with zero form and confidence and still pull off a result?
Number one, no, I can't reassure you that Tottenham aren't going to win the title. I mean, it's still very early days, isn't it? And they're in a good position, keeping clean sheets, best defensive record, I think. All is looking rosy in the Tottenham garden. But no, I don't think Arsenal fans should get too depressed just yet. Long way to go. Injuries, lack of form, all sorts. I still think, as good as their defensive record is, I still think there's questions to be answered about maybe the central defence, whether that's good enough to be a title-winning defence. But as for going into a North London derby, I mean, yeah, I've probably gone into a few personally, not playing particularly well. And I think it is the kind of match that Arsenal could do with at the moment. You wouldn't want to be playing, West Ham at home or whatever. They're going to struggled against them. I think you need something like this to lift everybody, to kind of shake them out of the slumber, if you like. So although probably an Arsenal player would struggle getting into the composite 11 at the moment. That's not to say they can't win the derby.
A few years ago there was a big controversy because a journalist posted a split 11 that was all 11 Tottenham players right before the game, and it was, I think, Adam Crafton, and he caught a lot of stuff, a lot of grief from that, including from the Arsenal Twitter admin, and it turned into this whole big thing. But it was a joke from him right now. I don't want to relive that right now because I'm not so sure it would be a joke at this point.
I'll go back to the semi-final actually in 1991, the famous Paul Gascoigne one when he got that free kick from 30 yards. We were going for the title. We'd only lost one game, or we did over the course of that season. We're a much better team than Tottenham, and they beat us, and they beat us well on the day. So it just goes to show that kind of best team doesn't always win. So there's a bit of hope there maybe for Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem as though the one thing of late that we do have is the ability to get up for a game that's, this level and compete, not get run over, not get, beaten before the game starts. It's the games that we should be not easily winning, but should be regularly winning that we seem to have the problem with. So as the ultimate contrarian team right now, Arsenal, you never know what you're going to see on Sunday. And that's my hope, at least. One more question, and then we're gonna wrap things up. This one's from Mike in Virginia. I'm not complaining about anyone that has a statue outside the Emirates not deserving one, but I mean, when is this going to happen? The next statue has to be Rocky, and if it's Rocky and Righty together, there's some history there, obviously. But when is this got to happen? Ryan, do you have a thought on this, or Alan? I mean, it's time, isn't it? You may be a little bit biased, Ryan, but there's. I'm getting the ingredients, and I'm heading over there as soon as COVID is over to build one myself. It's not. It'll probably look like that Ronaldo statue that came out a couple years ago, but
no, I do feel like on the stadium itself that they've definitely given Dad. They've got his T-shirt on one of the on the side bits of it. Then there's when if you're walking around it, there's a bit on him. So the club definitely haven't forgotten Dad in that.
Oh, I don't mean to imply that. I'm glad you pointed that out. I just think there's a higher honor. That's the fan. There'll be loads of others. I'm not just saying because he's here now, but I know I'm biased, but I think that Uncle Smudge is the most underrated player in our history. Like the 3 seasons top goal scorer, the goal and assist in the 1989, the goal in the cup final, the European. I can't, for me, he's if anyone's slightly forgotten about at these times, it's him. I think. Well, and there's no question about that as well.
I think your dad would make a better statue, Ryan. Much better looking than me. Much better statue.
No, but I'd like to see some more Alan Smith in around the Arsenal.
Well, I think we'd all love to see that. His current occupation might prevent that from happening on too regular of a basis, but from an honor standpoint, I 100% agree. I'd like to honor everyone that joined us in the chat today. Boyce, Tiffany Campo, Ryan Youngblood, Vivek, Matt D'Souza, as always, it's good to see you. Jake Feinberg, who when he came in here, whispered in my ear to tell Alan that he misses him on FIFA.
Oh, okay.
We had Derek Ray on a couple of weeks ago, Alan, and we were just trying to get to the bottom of what happened. I'm like, what was the, was there some like bribery involved? Well, like I envisioned there had to be this whole big thing, and he just said, no, I think I didn't know anything that happened. So, Owen wants to call you Uncle Smudge as well.
He's been down the pub. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, after a few pints of
He's
the
just
pub,
standing
you'll call
outside
a
of
lot
the
of
pub
people
crying.
uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lori's
Thank
in
you
the
both
pot.
for
Lori
joining
Laker.
us.
Yeah, Stephen Feely, who Stephen, Ryan, I know that Stephen has reached out to you. Stephen makes the Fees Tees shirts, including the one pictured here and the one honoring your dad as well. Stan the Man from Canada, Mike Hers, as always, great. Thanks for joining us, and just been a great hour.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Alan, for coming in. I'm glad that that he didn't overlook you. That was really the most nervous part of my recent podcasting career. Nothing personal, Stan, but how do I get this thing off of the? Okay, here we go. I think the best way to leave this is with the final comment that we have from our earlier shows about your father, and that's from someone who didn't play with him as a teammate, didn't maybe necessarily know him personally during his playing days, but has written eloquently about him. And we're going to leave the last word on this podcast to one of my favorite journalists, which is Amy Lawrence. So come on, you Gooners, and thanks again for everybody for joining us. I appreciate you ending the book with, again, with Rocky's legacy, just as Ian Wright ended the movie with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was the embodiment of everything that Arsenal was trying to be back then. He acted like he was one of us. I think that's why fans identified with him in a particularly special way. He had this phenomenal mixture of, the maximum determination you want a footballer to have. He had it, and then a bit more. Plus, he was more skillful than virtually anybody that you could watch in those days. And he married those two elements. And what more do you want in a footballer than someone who cares, someone who knows where he came from, someone who wants to represent everybody, who's proud of it, and who plays like a dream with fight to boot. I mean, he was and as you rightly know from his teammates like Alan and Kevin from those times, he was a fantastic human being. And that's
always the first to reach out to a new player, to make them feel at home. Just not Johnny Big Balls, just David Rocastle.
Yeah, he was. I agree with you on that, by the way. Yeah, it's an omission, and I hope one day that gets put right.